Road Rentals, created by Graham and Nash and Kate. This car rental program does exactly as it sounds. The program was designed and built to be used frontline at any vehicle rental corporation to merge the disconnect between customer needs and company services. This software is capable of collecting and storing user needs appropriately, as well as adjusting vehicle availability and price depending on user needs and input. Furthermore, the program can also do everything from filing insurance claims to routine maintenance. If you have any inquiry with any vehicle rental corporation, this program will handle what you need. To begin, I'll give you a slight run through of how our program works and a few of the options that you can take when running our program. To begin, I'll pretend I am the customer, and I will then be prompted with 3 options. For this time around, I will choose number 1 to rent a vehicle. I will then be prompted to enter a bunch of personal information. My age, my birthday, my birth month, and my birth year. I will then be prompted to enter my phone number, my email, it will then print out what I just entered and ask me if this is the proper information or not. I will say that it is. It will then give me a long list of vehicles to rent out. And this is due to the fact that there is no customer ahead of me, due to the fact that I am the first customer. So every vehicle that we own is displayed here. For instance, I will pick the Toyota Corolla, number 15. It will then ask me if this is the option that I want. It is. I want to rent this vehicle for 8 days. I'm going to confirm this. And then it will then output my information and my total cost at the bottom here, $926.60. Now, I will then restart the program, but this time around, I'm going to act as the employee. You see here, and it will now ask me to enter the password, which is 11223344. I would then be prompted with a bunch of different options due to the fact that I am now the employee. For the sake of this time around, we will press number 5, Customer Contact Information Database. Now, due to the fact that I was the customer a second ago and I rented out a vehicle, my information should be stored in 5. Here you can see that this final information is mine from last time around. Now that you get the general gist of what our program does and how it operates, we will run you through the code. Most of the work I did was through the employee stream of things, where we prompt the employee with a number of choices, such as being able to display the out-of-service vehicles, the customer information contact database, which is, as we just ran through, you can see previous customer information, rental vehicle running costs, and yearly financial reports. Right after the employee has been prompted with these choices, if we scroll down to choice 3, we can see here where my work begins. I created an F-stream operator and a string variable, and I simply read out of this out-of-service-vehicles.txt file. Now, if there is nothing within inside this file, I see out no vehicles currently out of service, but if there is, I will then output it to the employee. Very similarly, in choice 5 by the employee, we have essentially the very same thing, only with customer contact information. Now, this does almost essentially the exact same thing, only with the customer information instead of vehicles out of service. You see, I read out of data.txt where the customer information is stored, and I do the exact same thing where if there is nothing within inside this file, we will see out currently no customer contact information. But if there is, we will display this to the employee. In choice 7, we get slightly more sophisticated, where we introduce the maintenance class and link it to main through the report object. We give the employee a couple of options here to deal with customer damages or routine maintenance, and we implement these decisions through a switch case statement. Case 1 is almost identical to Case 2, only dealing with routine maintenance instead of customer damages. So I'll run through Case 1. First off, we will ask the employee to enter such information, and we will store this information inside the maintenance class using the member functions and the keyword set. We will then store that information dealing with customer damages in this text file for further use. This is applicable through these member functions and the keyword get. We will then delete the line of code containing that vehicle out of vehicles.txt, so the customer does not have the ability to rent that vehicle after it is out of service. We then print that vehicle name within another text file for further use. And we output a statement here to the employee just saying everything is good. Case 2, like I said, is identical to Case 1, only we're now dealing with vehicle maintenance instead of customer damage. If the employee decides to enter in options other than 1 or 2, we have a statement here saying invalid selection.
So what I did is design the price class, which essentially just calculates the total cost of a rental. I also did work on the maintenance class, which stores information regarding anything done to the car. I also designed the employee class, which just stores the employee's information like their name, ID, position. And finally, I helped debug the car class as well as work on some pathways in the main code. So in the customer menu, you can see that there are 3 parts. One is to rent a vehicle, return a vehicle, and then you can also file a claim. We've implemented some input validation. And the first option is if the customer enters 1, they're sent to a loop, which intakes their information. And after everything is entered, the program displays the input back to the user, asks them to confirm. And if they answer yes, you can be sent to the next part of the rental process, which is selecting a vehicle. Now the program's going to display a numbered list of all the available cars, and then the user just has to enter the corresponding number with the car they want to rent. This number is sent to the car class, which then obtains the name of the car and then prints it to the not available file. After it's been written as not available, we can delete the name of the car from the available file. Now that the car selection is done, we can continue the rental process by asking the user if they want insurance. They just have to enter yes or no. And then this will be passed to the price class, which will be discussed later. And then lastly, they can enter the length of the rental, which is also passed to the car class. The price class has 3 member variables. The car cost is the daily rate, insurance is the percent, and then days is the length of the rental. All of them have accessors and mutators, and at the bottom here, there's a function that uses these variables to calculate the total cost. The calculator has 2 parts. One is just multiplying the days by the daily rate. The second part is insurance. Insurance is a flat rate of 15%. So for example, if the vehicle is $100 a day, it would be $15 a day for insurance. So finally, to calculate the total cost, we add those 2 parts together and return to the main. Finally, back in main, we display the receipt to the user by calling the display invoice function, which takes classes as arguments. Then it'll use the getter functions to access the values and return the total costs. The second customer option is to return a vehicle. So firstly, it will call the car class, which has a member function designed to display all the cars from a file. Then it'll list the numbers corresponding with the rented out vehicles, and then the user will enter their selection. Then we set the line number to the choice number variable, which is passed to the car class. Here in the car class, we use a loop to search for the line and then copy the car name from that line. And we store this in a variable and we print the variable back to the available cars file.
So for my part, let's start with taking a look at the car class. It initializes an integer parameter called choice using the set function, and it is used to accept a user input for a vehicle choice and initialize a string parameter called vehicle through the set vehicle function. Both can be called individually using their respective get functions. And using both parameters, we use the functions display rented vehicles, modify vehicle, and add vehicle to display and modify vehicle data stored within text files as needed. Now let's take a look at the file claim class. This class initializes user input for an integer parameter and 6 string parameters related to the vehicle in question. Set functions and get functions accept user input and initialize the private member variables as well as allow for them to be displayed when needed respectively. This class also uses a function called modify file that uses the initialized private member variables to write to a file indicating the vehicle is out of service and a file indicating a claim has been submitted. And finally, within the main CPP file, I was responsible for creating the input logic path, which displays the options for the employee and customer path and their respective options, as well as including input validation to ensure the appropriate input has been received. Within the employee path, I worked on option 1, which displays all available vehicles for rent, option 2, which displays vehicles currently not available for rent, option 6, which reads a file containing vehicle data and stores it into a vector, which is basically an array that does not need its size to be initialized in advance and then displayed accordingly. And option 7, I added code to modify the vehicle data files relative to the user input. Within the customer path, I modified option 2 to initialize the car class based on user input and call on the functions within the class to modify vehicle data files to successfully return a vehicle. And I worked on option 3, which passes user input to the file claim class where it initializes the private member variables and passes the parameters back from the class to a function that writes the details to the relative text file. That's it for my part. Thank you for listening.